John Kasich fights for survival.
From the Battelle studio at WOSU at COSI, this is Columbus on the Record. Joining Mike Thompson this week, Ann Fisher, host of All Sides with Ann Fisher on 89.7 NPR News. Joe Ingles, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio. Gene Krebs, former state legislator, and Joseph Motz, chair of the Ohio Hispanic Coalition.
If you have ever watched Sesame Street, likely you have seen the segment where Big Bird or Cookie Monster sings the song, "One of these things is not like the others." That was this week's GOP presidential debate. That's the state of the Republican primaries.
If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. The second...
So cute. Such a cute soundbite. But here's the guy that buys a house for $179,000. He sells it to a lobbyist who's probably here for $380,000, and then legislation is passed. You tell me about this guy. This is what we're going to have as president.
Here's the guy that inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan.
I have to say, he lied this time. He lied. 100%. 100%.
You lied about the Polish workers.
Yeah.
You lied to the students of Trump University.
38 years ago.
Oh, he lied 38 years ago. All right, I guess there's a statute of limitation on lies.
Trying to be not like the others, John Kasich takes a very different approach, like he did when answering a question about so-called religious liberty cases.
And what I've said to you is that, look, where does it end? If you're in the business of selling things, if you're not going to sell to somebody you don't agree with, okay, today I'm not going to sell to somebody who's gay, and tomorrow maybe I won't sell to somebody who's divorced. I mean, if you're in the business of commerce, conduct commerce. That's my view. And if you don't agree with their lifestyle, say a prayer for them when they leave and hope they change their behavior. But when it comes to the religious institutions, they are inviolate in my mind, and I would fight for those religious institutions.
Gene Krebs, he was the outlier in that debate. It was so stunning how different he was from the other candidates, aside from Ben Carson, but the other three other candidates. Yeah. It was incredible to watch.
Well, yeah, and that's probably because of the three of them. He actually, according, this is not a great revelation of the candidates running for president. He has, on the Republican side, by far and away the best overall resume. He has experience.
Where does that leave your party when it's that obvious that a level-headed person is cast aside?
I think what the real problem is we've had going on is that we've had a series of needs for reforms to go on from policy in the Republican Party. It needs to go on for the past 25 years. At the state level, we didn't have enough going on underneath Voinovich, Taft, Ted did not do enough, but then Kasich comes in and reforms a lot of stuff. At the federal level, the Republicans, there was a point in time where we controlled the White House and both levels of Congress, and we did nothing, for example, on health care. And so what we've done is we've created this scenario for this by not, when we've had the chance, engaging in enough reforms. It's highly ironic that the man who is most about the most, I will do this my first 100 days. I will do this. Here's my practical programs. He has, and by the way, I think the best staff I've ever seen in the governor's office, help him lay some of this stuff out. Mm-hmm. And out of that, people are going, you sound awfully reasonable. Well, we'd rather go with somebody who shouts a lot.
And there it is. That's the shouting is winning right now.
Once again, he's the adult in the room.
John Kasich.
We've seen that. Yeah, Kasich. I mean, and we've seen that, and we've seen his ads, New Hampshire. They're very effective and very uplifting. But for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be resonating with the electorate at the primary level.
Joe, why is Donald Trump, he's going to probably win the majority of the primaries on Super Tuesday. Whether he continues on to the nomination, we don't know. But what's fueling him, do you think?
Boy, if I could answer that question, I think I'd really have something. I don't know what's fueling him. I think there is discontent, though, among a lot of voters who are supporting him, and he is bringing out new voters who have not voted recently. Mm-hmm. So we see that when people are interviewed, they say, well, I haven't voted for a long time, but he speaks my language. He's saying what I want to say.
The Republican Party's been talking for a long time about their big tent theory about themselves. I think for the first time we're starting to see where that's taking them. They certainly have widened their, broadened their tent or broadened their coverage. It's not to say the Hispanic vote like they were hoping for, or maybe the African American vote like they were hoping for. It's to this other more marginalized group that really wants to identify with something. And for the first time, whether it's Donald Trump or let's say a Bernie Sanders, either way, they're identifying with these outsiders.
The constituency seems to be celebrating political incorrectness. And I guess thinking back, and I always worry about the impact of the media in developing this type of constituency. And I think that we've had many years, I think back, maybe as far back as 1992, that we have had media that has been celebrating this sort of an idea.
The whole idea of reality TV, and this is the ultimate reality TV show. I mean, you have Jersey Shore, and you have Survivor, which wasn't as racy as some other ones, but all the reality TV shows.
But I think here you brought up earlier about Bernie. You have Bernie Sanders, who's not a Democrat. He is a socialist. He's running in the Democratic primary, okay, and you have Donald Trump, whose political persuasion is somewhat, shall we say, fungible? Fluid?
Evolving.
Situational politics. Like Hillary Clinton has situational ethics, he has situational politics.
I disagree with that.
Well, let's look at the Quinnipiac had a poll that came out this week that looked at the Ohio primary. The Ohio voters, primary voters vote on March 15th. Yeah. And Donald Trump is in the lead by, not a huge margin, but by 5 points over John Kasich and by 10 over Ted Cruz. Gene, surprised that the sitting governor, with an approval rating of in the 70s among Republicans, is trailing Donald Trump?
Two things. Earlier on the show, previous episodes, I've said polling is becoming increasingly suspect for me. Also, I think that as it gets closer to the time, I think you're going to see Kasich's not really done anything here. Trump just basically shows up on the nightly news and the talking head shows. That's his idea of campaigning.
But shouldn't the sitting governor have to do anything here?
The sitting governor will have to do some things here. But here's the thing. If Kasich wins Ohio, the analysis is, and the first thing they teach you when you go to the General Assembly is how to count. Mm-hmm. All right. If Kasich wins Ohio, it effectively stops Trump from getting an outright majority of the delegates for the Republican convention. That makes it an open convention. Now, here's the problem.
Because it's a winner take all.
Yeah, right.
We have nobody to broker it. Yeah. We don't have powers that be. We don't have a bunch of old white guys smoking cigars in the back room anymore.
Joe, does he make it to Ohio? Does John Kasich make it to Ohio?
I think absolutely. I think
even if he doesn't win
he'll
Michigan, Michigan votes on the 8th?
That's correct. That's correct. And Ohio on the 15th, I think he absolutely has to make it to Ohio. And I think not just for him.
He has to make it to Ohio, but does he make it to Ohio?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's only 5 points down here, which is the margin, almost a margin of error in most polling. So,
Tight
That's
on
right.
money.
Yeah. Well, and I think he probably will make it to Ohio, but he has to win Ohio. And if he doesn't win Ohio, then there's a problem. And I think that you're right. This is going to end up, if he does win Ohio, he's going to end up being the spoiler in this case, and we're going to have a convention that's going to be fractured. It's going to be nasty. It's in Cleveland. Of all places. So, that's kind of scary.
A full employment act for the three of you.
On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton seems to be solidifying her lead. It was not a landslide, but Clinton beat Bernie Sanders by a healthy margin in Nevada, and she has decent leads in the polls in South Carolina and the Super Tuesday states. In Ohio, Hillary leads Bernie by a comfortable margin, 15 points in the latest Quinnipiac poll. Clinton leads Sanders in most categories except for younger voters, Joe Moss.
Yes.
You still have a tough time getting to the younger voters.
No, and it's not just that. It's the excitement level, and there's no question in the world that Bernie brings that with him, and Hillary has failed to develop that. But I was thinking about this seriously this morning, and I think what's happening is I think there is a generational thing. Democrats of my generation see Hillary, and they see her as the culmination of a narrative that began with the civil rights movement and with women's liberation and with equality battles and so on, that we're excited about that. But I think that the millennials, they haven't seen that. They haven't witnessed that. And as a consequence, they need to get excited about somebody else.
And they're not afraid of passing by this chance to have a woman in the Oval Office. They're like, that just, we can do that again later. They're not, they don't see that as something.
Yeah, I had
that they've been
someone
waiting
who
for.
I respect and who I think is very, very educated. And this person asked me today, who is Gloria Steinem? Had no clue.
How old was this person?
30.
That's just stupid.
So, you know, we think that, but this person is very smart. So, and I think that's where it is. I mean,
when you say this person is someone you respect, someone who's highly educated and all that kind of stuff, and they don't know who Gloria Steinem is, I'm sorry. That's like saying you don't know.
I run into similar responses.
Well, then that's what they don't
Sorry,
know Buckley.
sorry for my Trumpism there.
Bernie attracted a couple thousand people up in Cleveland, even though he's trailing badly in the polls here in Ohio. I don't see Hillary Clinton getting that enthusiastic a crowd with little notice. Maybe she will. I don't know.
I will tell you, I still believe, I'm out on the limb on this, Hillary will not be the Democrat nominee. Groupthink makes me break out in hives. And there's no enthusiasm out there for her, and there's a lot of scientific reasons behind that. But
there's no alternative either. I mean, you have, as you described, a socialist who is very far left. Even Democrats say he's too far left to win a general election.
Right. She's
the only other candidate. Doesn't she win just by default, even if there is no enthusiasm?
Well, and then you've got a lot of other issues hanging over her, and you know, I know Joe disagrees with my opinion of her and situational ethics, but I think that's the Clinton DNA. Situational
Gene,
ethics that will unravel
I think you're talking about something catastrophic happening to her campaign, not necessarily that Bernie Sanders is going to beat her. Am I correct?
Both,
because if that were to happen, then we might see a Joe Biden have to come in late.
Right.
Or we might have to see some combination.
You're talking about something negotiated at the Democratic convention, similar to what's going to happen at the Republican.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get to the Senate race. P.G. Sittenfeld got what he wanted this week, a chance to debate Ted Strickland in the same room. Officially, it was a joint interview before the Plain Dealer editorial board, but debate they did, and that brought a reprimand from the third Democrat in the U.S. Senate primary.
PG, my friend, I am saying to you for the 5th time today, you have a right to criticize me for this, okay? I accept your right to criticize me for this. If you want to say it again, you can say it again. But I mean, you're beating a dead horse.
I'm raising what I think is one of the urgent moral issues of our day.
And you've raised it, and we've raised it.
Boys, please. Really, this is the problem that we are experiencing in Congress today. We have men acting like boys. We don't get anything done. That's why you need a woman to come into office and say, you know what, let's compromise.
And Fisher, we could have used her as the moderator of the Republican debate on CNN. I mean, she was in control.
Yeah, well.
What do you make of this race? PG got his wish, the debate, and now you see why Ted Strickland didn't want to debate him.
Well, I mean, the reason why Ted Strickland didn't want to debate him is because he doesn't have to debate him.
But they're on the same table. He challenged him in person.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's very common for a person in Ted Strickland's position not to debate someone as far behind him as P.G. Sittenfeld is. Of course, he had to do it to get, you know, if he wants to get the endorsement from the Plain Dealer. So that was that, and that's where we've seen people come forth before who wouldn't, for instance, in the last gubernatorial race. It is what it is. I mean, it's why he didn't want to, but P.G. Sittenfeld could be a lot of other kind of people. It's just, I don't know what it is, where we're at, where people are yelling at each other, screaming at each other, talking over each other. It's like a disaster as far as trying to figure out where somebody stands on something.
I'll be very careful and not interrupt Dan then. I think that now this election is now over, because that ad made me cringe. I can see that video being played on a continuous ad all the time.
What was?
That was just cringy.
I mean,
watching that?
Watching that just made me cringe. And I think the other thing that's going to go on here is there are only two groups historically in Ohio that are in play. The NPR GOP, your people who listen to you in the afternoon, not Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity, they listen to you folks. And the other group is the Copperhead Democrats. For them, guns are very important. Ted has blurred his brand. Who is Ted Strickland now? And combined with that horrible, just cringing-worthy piece of video there, and Ted having blurred its Portman by 12.
Yeah. Let's look at the polls right now.
You're saying it's Portman by 12?
Yes.
The polls right now would disagree. Let's take a look first at if
on election day.
PG Sittenfeld were to face Rob Portman. No surprise there. Rob Portman would if it was held today, would have a big win over PG Sittenfeld. But if Ted Strickland is the Democratic nominee, which we expect him to be after the primary, he actually leads by a small percentage, by 2 percentage points. Basically, the two candidates are tied because that's well within the margin of error. Ted Strickland, Joe Mas, did have a 6 or 8 point lead 6 or 8 months ago. It's been tied now for 5 months.
Yeah,
what
it's
do you
going to
make
be
of this?
moving. That'll continue to move. In
Not
answer,
a lot, though. It's going to stay tight.
but in answer to the similar question some time back, my answer is the same. If the Democrats carry Ohio in the presidential election, then Strickland's the next senator.
And we're talking about 4 or 5 seats in the Senate now in play. And if it looks like Ohio is going to carry the presidential vote, they're going to be pouring money into the state of Ohio. It's going to be much more competitive, but it'll we'll still have to wait and see about that. But it's going to be very competitive. 12 points? I don't think so.
Yeah,
It would require an absolute a blowout, of course. But barring a blowout and some sort of major scandal on the Republican side, that race, after seeing that ad, and also with Ted having completely blurred his brand on guns. I mean, the reason he got elected in 2006 was because he brought along with him the Copperhead Democrats, who were also Reagan Democrats. Now, a lot of them are Trumpians. They're not going to support him now because of how he switched his position on guns.
But his support for ultimate, universal gun rights, no exceptions, hurt him in African American communities.
Exactly.
Might that offset? Might he be able to get more votes from Cleveland, from Columbus?
No.
Because of his softening on gun regulations.
Here's an amazing thing. All right, I'm from a county of 40,000 people and 60,000 hogs. I speak better to urban issues than what Ted Strickland does. Okay, when the whole time he was governor, he never found his voice for urban issues. He never understood the issues going on, and so that's why when he ran in 10, there was absolutely no enthusiasm for him in the African American community because he never understood how to get to their issues.
I think it was more complicated than that in 10. I think the big problem for him in 10 was we had the economic downturn, and it was still playing out. Had we been in a healthy economic situation like we were 6 months later, it could have been a different outcome. I think that was the biggest determinant.
We also had a scandal in Cuyahoga County that 55,000 fewer Democrats voted up there. I think we would have.
Stephanie Tubbs Jones also had passed away a year or so before that election. A big supporter of Ted Strickland, probably hurt his efforts to get African Americans out to vote in Northeast Ohio as well.
The closer the presidential election is, the better off. The more you drive the Democrats to the polls, even though there are more Democrats in Ohio than there are Republicans, they also tend not to vote as regularly, as reliably, and the more you can drive to the polls. So there's just so much in play right now.
Gene, you mentioned the gun issue hurting Ted Strickland, his switching on that. Rob Portman switched on gay marriage.
Yeah.
Don Eckhart, his primary opponent, was endorsed by the Greene County Republican Party because of his switch. Because of Portman's switch. So it cuts both ways, does it not in this race?
Not really, because at the end of the day, what all Republicans understand is the fact that you get a seat in the Senate, you now get to have a say on the Supreme Court nominee. And they understand that, and they're willing to go, okay, so even when I talk to some evangelicals, but the evangelicals are now backing Trump, who's been married 3 times, had a 2-year-long affair with Marla Maples. So let's talk about moral centers here, Dan. So yeah, so all of that's kind of this is all built upon a house of sand now.
All right, let's get to our last topic. Along with candidates for president and U.S. Senate, Ohio voters in November could decide whether to legalize marijuana, but only the medicinal kind. Supporters of a medical marijuana ballot initiative have released some details of their proposal. The national group that's pushing this would require users have a marijuana ID card. The proposal calls for pot being available only for folks who have certain medical conditions. The pot would be subject to sales taxes and fees, and it would be a free market system, no monopolies. Joe Ingles, the monopoly folks who supported the monopoly question on last year's ballot have said, we're going to sit this one out so there will not be a recreational marijuana issue on this fall's ballot.
Right,
Does that
right.
better the chances of medicinal marijuana?
I don't know that they're going to sit it out. A lot of those folks are involved with the legislature's efforts to deal with medical marijuana. And the legislature and the House have been holding these town halls to figure out what Ohioans think about it. In the Senate, they've been holding their own hearings, or whatever they call them, around the state to try to get some consensus to come up with a plan for medical marijuana. If that plan for medical marijuana is going up against whatever this national group comes up with, I don't think we're going to see the people who were behind the no vote in November. I don't think we're going to see them sitting on the sidelines. I think a lot of them are going to take sides on which one to go with.
So it's between two medical marijuana proposals rather than the recreational is off the table for right now.
Yeah.
So where does this go, Joe?
Well, it could be a problem if we've got competing
Marijuana,
initiatives in,
yeah.
marijuana things. Needless to say, I know a lot of pro-marijuana folks that voted against the last provision because of the monopoly issue. What would happen in this case? I think that maybe this might be successful. I mean, a lot of states have at least medical marijuana.
We already know what Ohioans want when it comes to medical marijuana. We know beyond the shadow, really, pretty much, it's closer to like 80 or 90%. Behind the shadow, 89%, I think was the last number I saw. There's no question about it. It's question about it is how much they're going to fiddle around with it in the legislature and whether or not they're going to come up with something that would affect whatever goes on the ballot. But there's no question.
And be properly regulated so you do not find abuses by it. That's the key thing.
Will Republican, because this has been before the legislature for a long time, medical marijuana. Bills have filed almost every session, and there's been no action on it. Will Republican legislators move on this, Gene, if it's tightly regulated?
My advice to them would be to move on something that has the support of the Buckeye Sheriff's Association, the Ohio Police Chiefs, and all the local ADMH, your local drug and mental health advocacy boards, the people who deal with this on the ground level. You come up with something that all those parties can agree to.
Is that possible?
I think without that, I think you have to have that in order so you do not have the situation like you have in California where you walk in and say, I have a hangnail, I need a toe.
You're talking about two different things. You're talking about politics and then you're talking about the practical application of medical marijuana in the state of Ohio. Those are two different things. You're talking about politics when you say if you have everybody agreeing on everything.
Yeah.
That's totally different than what the hangnail in California scenario. It's not the same thing.
Then we're going to end up with the hangnail in California stuff where you walk in and say, I have a bad hangnail, I need a toke.
If the legislature does not act, that opens the door for a citizen's petition that could be a lot looser than they would like.
I don't think the legislature is going to act. I think this has to be done by means of a constitutional amendment, and that's
what they need to have. If they have to get everybody on the same table, they're not going to act because they won't get everybody on the same table.
Yeah, but I think they'll come up with something. I can't see them ignoring this issue much longer.
Well, they ignored the casino issue until it was too late.
And hopefully they learned from that,
And they learned from last year's 3. Sorry to interrupt.
The lesson last year was they didn't do anything and it got smoked.
Well, yeah, but I think what they understood though out of last year's issue 3 ballot battle was that if they had taken medical marijuana off the table, it would have changed the whole dynamic. And I think that's what you may see. I think they're thinking strategy, not tactics.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots, and we will start with you, Joe Mas.
Great, and I know all of you want to join me in sending a big hello to the residents of Westminster Thurber community. I found out that the folks at the community watch this program every Friday night and every Sunday, so I want to say a big hello. They invited me to talk to them this next week. I'm looking forward to that.
That's great.
We have a viewing party over there.
Yeah.
All right, Gene.
On Wednesday, March 9th, the Columbus Metropolitan Club will be having a panel discussion on the future of the electrical system in Ohio and the possible problems with it. I will be moderating the panel, and it is open to the public. There's a cost for lunch, and it's held at the Columbus Metropolitan Club downtown at the Athletic Club at noon on March 9th.
Okay. Joe.
I just want to leave a thought here. If we do go into a situation in Cleveland where it's a brokered convention and there's a lot of anger, a lot of angst out there, we could see a situation in Ohio where things could turn violent. And that, you know, on a national stage, this is the opportunity for Cleveland to look great on a national stage. I hope that this doesn't come into a debacle, but if you think about the climate, it is ripe, and in history when we've seen it, it hasn't been good.
And Ann.
I just want to put a shout out to Kelly Prather. She was the third person, the one that actually kind of broke through the muck in that conversation with the plain dealer, and she's you know, I thought she shined there. I thought she looked very good. I thought she made a great point, and you know, I checked her out, and I would advise other people to check her out. I found her refreshing.
I think this is a crucial week for the John Kasich campaign. I know people say he's going to stick it out till Michigan and Ohio, but if he loses badly in all of the Super Tuesday states, you need 20% to get any delegates, and he loses Michigan, and he's in jeopardy of losing Ohio, even if it's just jeopardy. I say he bows out before he gets the Ohio primary to hold his cards in case they want to look to him for a VP nod, because if you lose Ohio as a Republican candidate for president, they're not going to look too kindly on you as a VP running mate to win Ohio. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online, Facebook, Twitter, WOSU.org, and you can take us with you via the WOSU Public Media mobile app. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.